This is the Capitol Rundown.
This is a very sad day for America.
So this is the kind of thing where there must be consequences.
The question is, can a Mike Rogers, who is a non-Trumper, moderate Republican from the establishment wing of this party, can he win?
Make It in Michigan budget delivers on the issues that really matter most to Michigan's working families.
It's all straight ahead. The Capitol Rundown starts now.
Thanks for joining us. I'm Siobhan Klepfer. We just wrapped up a busy week in both state and national politics, so let's dive right in and get you up to speed. Former President Donald Trump has been indicted for a third time. This one over charges accusing him of conspiring to overturn the 2020 election results. Washington correspondent Raquel Martin was outside the courtroom when it happened on Thursday.
This is a very sad day for America.
Former President Donald Trump left Washington a short time after pleading not guilty in a federal courtroom.
This is a persecution of a political opponent. This was never supposed to happen in America.
On Tuesday, a grand jury indicted the former president on 4 felony counts for conspiring to overturn the 2020 election results.
We have one set of laws in this country, and they apply to everyone.
But Trump's legal team says the former president was only following the advice of legal advisors, and his election claims are protected by his right to free speech.
This is a very dangerous road to go down.
Congressional Republicans like Missouri Senator Eric Schmidt say the Department of Justice is unfairly targeting the former president.
I mean, it's another political prosecution by this Biden administration.
Tennessee Senator Marsha Blackburn says this third indictment against Trump only makes him a stronger presidential candidate.
I think it pushes people to support President Trump because they know if they can do this to Donald J. Trump, they can do it to them.
But Democratic Senator Richard Blumenthal says the case is not about politics.
It is focused, framed on the crimes, 45 pages of powerful facts. There needs to be accountability here.
Well, Michigan is one of the states at the heart of the charges against the former president. The state's votes for President Joe Biden were among those publicly called into question by Mr. Trump. And one person who had to deal with those accusations is Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson.
So this is the kind of thing where there must be consequences. There, under no circumstances could we allow such an unprecedented, coordinated, multifaceted effort to, though it was unsuccessful, to then, wither on without any accountability. So I think and hope that everyone can see with these indictments, no one is above the law, especially when the charges are not just as serious as these and trying to interfere with the voice of the American people, but all the violence that resulted from that election interference.
Michigan attorney Stephanie Lambert, who is accused of being involved in multiple efforts around the country to overturn the election for Mr. Trump, has now been charged in connection with accessing and tampering with voting machines. And this is just days after Matt DePerno, the Republican lawyer who unsuccessfully ran to replace Dana Nessel as the Attorney General last year, was charged in that case. In July, Nessel announced 8 criminal charges each against 16 Republicans who she says submitted false certificates for electors for Trump. To date, there has been no evidence of widespread election fraud in Michigan or any other state. Well, coming up next, is it too early to think about who's going to run for governor in 2026? Not for our Capitol correspondent Tim Skubic. That story when the rundown continues. Welcome back. The sheriff of Genesee County is telling our Capitol correspondent Tim Skubic he might be a candidate for governor in 2026. Here's Tim with the story.
Genesee County Sheriff Chris Swanson wants to create a statewide pet registry to list the names of animal abusers and then prevent them from buying any more pets to abuse. But he's also thinking about other things. Governor Gretchen Whitmer, for example, can't run for governor again. And even though that next election is not until 2026, would-be governors are already thinking about it, including Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson, including Oakland County State Senator Mallory McMorrill, and including Detroit Mayor Mike Duggan. And while he is not announcing his candidacy, Sheriff Swanson confesses he, quote, could run.
I think you're going to see a lot of people say, I could lead the state post Gretchen Whitmer. She's done a great job. And one of those could be Mike Duggan.
And one of them could be you.
Could.
The sheriff is very coy about admitting his intentions, which started almost 2 years ago. But for now, he's adopted a first things first agenda. First, he wants to be re-elected sheriff in Genesee County next year, and he's working with legislative leaders on that pet registry to put that on the ballot in 2024. But what about 2026, the next governor's race?
So there's at least a 50-50 chance you will run.
I will tell you, I'll answer it this way. I never turn down opportunities if it could help people. So wherever I can go to influence the most amount of people, I can have a small part of it, that's my goal.
So ask yourself, does that sound like a guy who's running for governor to you?
Well, the race to fill the seat left by the retiring U.S. Senator Debbie Stabenow is on. One candidate has not officially declared yet, but Tim has some thoughts about that as well and other topics out of Lansing this week. And he sat down with the Rundown's Jorma Duran.
It's time to get updated politically here in the state of Michigan, and nobody better than this guy right here, Tim Skubic, to give us the lowdown. Tim, you've been following the potential run of Republican Mike Rogers for the U.S. Senate seat that'll be left vacant when Senator Debbie Stabenow retires. What's the latest on that?
Well, scratch the word potential run, because he is running. He hasn't announced, Jorma. But we did explain earlier this week that Mr. Rogers is going to run for the U.S. Senate, having abandoned his flirtation, if you will, about running for the White House. The question is, can a Mike Rogers, who is a non-Trumper, moderate Republican from the establishment wing of this party, can he win a Republican Party primary, which is not the same Republican Party that he entered a number of years ago? Mr. Rogers will get in. He would be the automatic front runner, but he's got to get through a primary before he gets to a Democratic opponent in the general election. But this is a game changer. It's good news for the establishment Republican Party. Those who have been closing their checkbooks to the party will now reopen them for Mike Rogers. They'd like to see him get the nomination. The question is, can he get it?
That's right. Well, one big piece of news out of the Capitol this week was the state Supreme Court tossing out a big part of the Michigan no-fault auto insurance reform bill. What was their reason behind this?
Well, this is a very interesting story, and if you have friends or if your family is involved in a catastrophic accident, this is really, really right down your alley, and the Supreme Court decision is a plus for you. Here's the background. When the legislature adopted the so-called no-fault car insurance legislation, they had language in there that basically said that people that had catastrophic insurance would have their benefits cut to about 45%. And they passed the law, the governor signed it, and obviously the people that were affected by this went to the courts and said, we think this is wrong. And the Michigan Supreme Court on a 5-2 decision said, you know what, folks, you're absolutely right. Because what the lawmakers did is they retroactively went back to people who had insurance policies with this catastrophic coverage and said, we're going to cut those benefits. And the court said, you can't do that. But now that the benefits are going back to the catastrophic folks, those savings are out the window. And the question is, what savings will there be in Michigan, which is still ranked number 4th in the nation, Jorma, with the highest car insurance rates?
Tim, Jorma, thank you. Still to come, Governor Gretchen Whitmer just signed the next state budget. We'll crunch those numbers for you when we come back. Keep it here. Welcome back. This past week, Governor Gretchen Whitmer signed the $82 billion state budget for the next fiscal year. That's the largest ever for Michigan. The governor says the budget is bipartisan and that it will affect all Michiganders. Democratic leaders touted the investments being made to infrastructure, safety, and health care. More than $300 million will go toward public health. $41 million has been earmarked for fixing roads and similar projects. More than $300 million is going toward Medicare reimbursements and recommendations to tackle racial disparities in healthcare, such as mobile health units and grants. And more than $282 million can be spent on policing to pay for more state troopers and provide training for current police officers.
Make It in Michigan budget delivers on the issues that really matter most to Michigan's working families and sets Michigan up for long-term success. This work will not be done in a couple years. It will not be done in 5 years. We've got to be on a trajectory. And thanks to this budget, we are taking a major step forward. We're bringing our rainy day fund to an all-time high of nearly $2 billion. We're building on our growing economic momentum.
Democratic State Senator Sarah Anthony says the budget reflects the needs of Michiganders, and she calls it the people's budget. But not all lawmakers are happy with the spending. House Republican leader Matt Hall and fellow House Republican Andrew Beeler are among them. Hall says Democrats chose the partisan path to pick winners and losers, rewarding their political allies with pork projects and unsustainable programs. While Beeler says $9 million on pool and splash pads around the state, 1,000 new bureaucrats added to the state government, $2 million on a population panel to figure out why people are leaving the state. People are leaving the state for budgets like this. Over the summer, the Michigan Capitol Commission has been working to make security improvements for the building. In addition, a weapons ban is set to be implemented before the start of the fall. Elle Myers has the details.
In a matter of weeks, getting inside the Michigan Capitol will start to look a little different as new security measures are implemented alongside a new weapons ban policy. Now, I'll talk about that new policy shortly, but if you'll come with me, I'll show you what's new in the Capitol.
We'll start installing equipment, testing it, etc. Once we get it up and going, we'll probably have it on, even though it's not going to be like implemented. We're not going to be stopping people. When people get used to seeing it, having it, make sure we know how it works.
These security upgrades have been in the works for months. Last February, the commission voted unanimously to implement new security measures and a weapons ban for the Capitol grounds.
Really limit the control, limit the access people will have. We'll be able to screen everybody through our weapons detection equipment and hopefully keep any dangerous items out of the building.
Candler tells me things like firearms, explosives, and knives are the main things officers will screen for, but there will be exceptions.
If a carpet installer came in has an X-Acto knife, obviously that's okay.
Pass-through weapons detection equipment will be placed at the main entrance, and Candler says he hopes the new measures won't cause a big backup.
That we'll have some places like where some of the vendors and carpenters that people come in so we can check what they have in their bag, but mainly people just are going to move through hopefully at a rapid rate.
Reporting at the Michigan Capitol, I'm Elle Myers, CBS News, Detroit.
Well, coming up next on the rundown, the credit rating of the United States was just downgraded. We'll tell you what that means when we come back. Welcome back. Fitch Ratings, an influential credit firm, downgraded the United States government's credit worthiness. Officials with the firm say part of the reason is what they call an erosion in governance. Fitch decreased America's rating from the highest possible score, AAA, to AA+. At a news conference Wednesday, U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen said she disagreed with the decision. The secretary pointed to the 13 million new jobs created since 2021 and a 3.6% unemployment rate.
Fitch's decision is puzzling in light of the economic strength we see in the United States. I strongly disagree with Fitch's decision, and I believe it is entirely unwarranted.
The decision to downgrade America's credit rating was reportedly influenced by the January 6, 2021 riot at the U.S. Capitol. And with this lower credit rating, it's more expensive for the U.S. to borrow money. Some GOP presidential hopefuls say it's time to start electing younger leaders after questions linger about the age and health of some of the nation's current elected officials. Washington correspondent Trevor Shirley has that story.
Whether it was 90-year-old Democratic Senator Dianne Feinstein's apparent confusion during a routine yes or no vote,
Just say aye. Okay.
or 81-year-old Republican Senate leader Mitch McConnell's freeze of more than 20 seconds during a press conference.
Anything else you want to say?
Questions are again being asked about the age and mental competency of some of the country's aging leaders.
We need to have term limits in Congress, and we need to have mental competency tests for anyone over the age of 75.
That's GOP presidential candidate Nikki Haley's solution, one too extreme for some of her fellow presidential hopefuls.
The tests are not constitutional.
McConnell later told reporters he felt fine after the freezing up and offered no further explanation.
I feel like he's going to continue to be the Republican leader through the rest of this Congress.
Republicans routinely question President Joe Biden's ability at 80 to carry out his job, something quietly echoed by some Democrats too.
When you go and see him falling asleep with leaders, that's concerning. And I know when I was at the United Nations, leaders watch the health status of other leaders.
Haley says she's not trying to be disrespectful. Others say trust the process.
The voters, I have a lot of confidence in to make the right decisions.
And Haley says if elected, she will push for congressional term limits. Coming up, we have results from a recent poll of Michigan voters in the 2024 presidential election and some other issues as well. Stay tuned. Welcome back. According to results from an Emerson College polling survey of Michigan voters released Friday, the 2024 presidential election could be a tight one if it comes down to President Joe Biden versus former President Donald Trump. In that particular race, both Republican Trump and Democrat Biden come in with 44%. 8% of those polled say they'll vote for someone else, while 5% were still undecided. When Green Party candidate Cornel West was added to the question, he gets 4%, while President Biden falls to 41%, and Mr. Trump in that case gets 43%. In the party primaries to find a replacement for retiring U.S. Senator Debbie Stabenow, among Democrats, current Congresswoman Alyssa Slotkin holds the lead with 45%. Actor Hill Harper has just 8%. 25% are undecided, and 22% of those polled say they'll vote for someone else. Among Republicans in that race, former Representative Mike Rogers has 12% and is the only candidate in the double digits. Former Congressman Peter Meijer trails at 9%. 29% are undecided, while 39% say someone else. And finally, Michigan voters say the economy is the most important issue for them with 35%, and that was followed by threats to democracy, education, healthcare, and others. If you're interested in getting more political news from Michigan and Washington, we've got just the thing for you. You can sign up for our Capitol Rundown newsletter. It's just one email each week, and you can get it by pointing your cell phone camera at your screen right now. This will take you to the sign up page, or you can head to WLNS.com/newsletter. And that's our show for this week. Thanks for watching the Capitol Rundown. We'll see you again next week.